G'day YouTube, how the heck are we doing? It is Foul Play here and we're back for some more modern action. So to kick this league off, we will be running All That Glitters. So this was inspired by a viewer that turned around and commented about how underutilized the card Battle Mastery is. So this is a pretty interesting card at surface value. So for 3 mana it gives your creature double strike. So dream scenario of creature turn 1, turn 2 Rancor Ethereal Armor, turn 3 make your third land drop into Battle Mastery. So that's going to be an attack for 5 on turn 2 and attack for 12 on turn 3. So that's 17 damage and that's pretty reasonable. So a few grievances with this card. Firstly, you have to get to 3 mana, which is something our deck cannot always do. Secondly, you do need other auras to be on your creature to enable it. This could be okay game 1, but games 2 and 3, our opponent's going to be bringing in a lot of enchantment hate, like Force of Vigor is everywhere in the format and we know about it. So I don't overly think this card is viable. If you do want to run around and play it, you know, as 1 or 2 copies as like a finisher, it's probably fine, but then probably games 2 and 3, you might look at boarding it out. Now, conversely, with All That Glitters, so that same scenario of Rancor, Ethereal Armor turn 2, turn 3 All That Glitters, plus let's say a Griff Spoon, a Hyena Umbra, you're going to be attacking for the same sort of damage that you would have with Battle Mastery. So the Ethereal Armor will be giving essentially 4 stats to your creature, so that would take it from 5 to 7. All That Glitters would give 4 stats, taking it up to 11, and then the other aura would bring it all the way up to 12, essentially. So that's pretty impressive. All That Glitters as well. I mean, it is a little bit weak because it doesn't have anything like First Strike on it, but its raw stats are pretty impressive. Even if we only have 2 mana on turn 3, it's almost like dropping a Daybreak Coronet. Like your creature gets 3/3 from playing All That Glitters, which is pretty nice. Obviously more with Ethereal Armor on the board. So we're going to be going for that. To make way for this, we're going to be minusing Spirit Mantle, which I am reluctant to do. And then 1 Sentinel's Eyes, 1 Audacity, taking us down to 1 of each in the main deck there, but no Spirit Mantles. As far as the sideboard is concerned, we're going to be introducing some graveyard hate again. So I'm going to be playing both Endurance and Sanctify and Vex. So previously I was running Suppression Field against Yawgmoth. I don't really think that card was that good against anyone outside of Yawgmoth, but Sanctify is just a little bit better. It's also a creature we can bring in against like the Rakdos Scam deck and just keep our creature count a little bit higher. Endurance is going to be good against Living End, majorly. Outside of Living End, it might not have as many decks you want to play it against, but you never know. We'll see what we run into during the league. Usual Tron hate of Teague Oof. Usual Artifact hate of Force of Vigor. We're in our ley lines there. We've got a 1 of Solitude. Let's get into the league. Alright, once again I left that damn deck preview over the top of my screen. I'm very out of practice here. So we're going to go ahead and do just a replay of this first game and of the sideboarding. So we won the die roll here versus Terry the Expert. We see this hand up off the bat, and this hand has 3 hexproof creatures, 2 Griff Spoon, and only 1 white source of mana. So this is fairly underpowered. I know you could mulligan this hand and see rubbish in the next few hands, but this is definitely a mulligan. So we do mulligan this one. And we see a nothing hand, so naturally we mulligan again. And this is where things get good, because we see Bogle, 2 lands, and Ethereal Armor plus Daybreak. Unfortunately, we have to say goodbye to Daybreak and Audacity, but this is the hand we're playing through the game. Oh, never mind. We lost the die roll in this game. I did not realize that. So anyway, we dodge any sort of interaction from our opponent, play our guy out, pass the turn, and hey look, another Ethereal Armor. That's pretty good. Opponent into Overgrown Tomb, Ragavan. We see Beanstalk, so at this point I'm thinking it's an Elementals deck. Being the biggest abuser of Beanstalk, so no reason to do anything other than just throw down attack for 5, Another Beanstalk from our opponent, and little do they know we have lethal on board here for 12 damage. Sort of semi-conscious of Leyline of Sanctity, our opponent holding up mana, but they didn't have it, and we got away with that one. Alright, so this is what I have my opponent pegged on. We see this Cascade Beanstalk deck. So utilizing the elementals of Fury and Solitude, we see Omnath in there as well for good measure. Leyline Binding as interaction as far as our deck is concerned, and Fire and Ice in the same boat. A couple of random things like Teferi, Force of Vigor, Time Walk, Boom's Dust, one Besage on the main, a couple of Force of Vigors in the sideboard. Importantly, no counter magic to note, but potential for things like Chalice of the Void. Interestingly enough, we did actually submit a 64 card hand here into game number 2. So this is the way I sideboarded. I boarded in Force of Vigor, Sanctify, and Vec, and I looked to take out my Light Paws. However, I mustn't have taken them out, and I must have clicked submit, keeping that 64 card deck. For both Beanstalk and our opponent's Leyline Binding, and we'll look to take out Light Paws and all that glitters. Alright, opponent has mulligan to 6 cards. We'll do the same. And this is like attack for 4 if we top deck a land. And then we still need like a business card after that. We do, however, have Light Paws that could go a bit wacky post-interaction. Opponent has kept a 6 card hand. I feel like we're supposed to mulligan this, but going down to 5 cards is going to make things difficult. Having said that, we did just win the previous match on 5 cards. I think I'm going to keep this one though. Bottom Scout, and hopefully we top deck well. We are up a game, so we get a little bit of leeway. Opponent shocks in Breeding Pool, suspending Crashing Footfalls. Okay, that makes sense. We brick on land, see Hyena Umbra. First strike is reasonable though. I guess I should probably Bogle to play around Mystical Dispute. I think that's slight missequence there. Alright, so opponent with another fetch shock here, and I guess they're just tapping down our land with Ice and upkeep. So hopefully we top deck a land so we can play something this turn. Alright, that's perfect. Yep, Rancor seems like a reasonable one to throw on our creature here, just to start that clock. Our opponent has dealt 6 damage to themselves thus far. Alright, and now we can see Shardless Agent into nonsense. 19 cards revealed. We see Force of Negations, Teferis, Narsetts, Scion of Draco. Wow, okay. And we hit a land off the top, which is nice. Alright, I think the player's Light Paws plus Griffspoon on the Scout, we get our attack. Alright, I've just got out Ethereal Armor there off of the trigger. Just make a big 5/5. That's going to be able to block the Rhino tokens. It can still die to Fury. These decks running Fury anymore? It says 58% of the decks run 2. That deals 4 damage divided as you choose, so we'll be alive against Fury. Alright, this Crushing Footfalls down to 1 time counter. Opponent's at 6, 4 in hand. And Teferi Time Raveler will be able to bounce Light Paws. That will put Ethereal Armor into the bin. If our opponent doesn't have counter magic interaction, we can just kill them on crackback here. Importantly, opponent can't hold up like Petty Theft now. They haven't bounced any of our other auras to deny tempo that way. Yeah, it's just if we can get that 1 extra point of damage on our opponent. Opponent holding up Plains, so do these decks run Leyline Binding? They do, okay. Yeah, this is Rhinos, this is not Cascade, like Beanstalk Cascade rubbish that I thought it was before. Ethereal Armor off the top is pretty spicy. We're down to 7, so assuming our opponent has interaction, we need to try and survive the crackback. Activation of Horizon Canopy would put us to 6. So we might just need a Bogle, Ethereal Armor the Bogle, block one of these Rhinos. That doesn't win against Leyline Binding. Alright, let's just assume our opponent does not have Leyline Binding. If not, yeah, we're pretty doomed. Playing Bogle won't really accomplish much, and I accidentally skipped through my attack step because our opponent has a Planeswalker and it was giving me the option. That's horrible. Looks like our opponent did not have interaction either. So we're going to be putting to 1. We're dead to like a Fire and Ice to the face. Dead to Violent Outburst, buffing up their board. Alright, so opponent has played Omnath now. They have also taken a while to think, so I guess they don't have the kill this turn. They don't have interaction with us. Alright, opponent gains 4 life. That's up to 10. Attacks will block a Rhino. This puts us to 1. We can no longer activate Horizon Canopy. Daybreak Coronet off top, so that's going to be enough to win. Alright, so we're absolutely let out of jail for free. Following that misclick, we'll make sure we don't make that same misclick again. We have got flying. Our opponent's unable to block us, and we do take down Rhino's match number 1. Alright, welcome back to match number 2 here. We lost the die roll this game, and I'm going to be mulliganing down. We mulligan to 6. We keep this 6. We want to like really need to hit land. It's not just a want. We have to. If we do hit land, we've got a good combination of spells, though. Opponent, Gemstone Caverns. So like Serum Powders deck. Maybe a Zoo deck. Okay, we hit land. That's nice. Straight up, Temple Garden, Bogle, pass the turn. We see Urza Saga now. Interesting. Opponent currently no colored mana. And Patchwork Automation from our opponent. Does this mean our opponent is on like a Harden Scales deck? Yeah, we'll play around. I mean, our opponent won't be doing Blood Moon, but we probably preserve life total regardless. We have a chance to Light Pause. I think that just takes away tempo, and mostly we don't want to do it. Let's go ahead and suit up our creature. First strike, Vigilance, start attacking. Now we can block our opponent's creatures as well. Alright, an opponent on Zabaz, so this will be Hardened Scales our opponent is on, and the Ozolith. Alright, so a little bit of a slow start for our opponent. If given the option, we will block and kill our opponent's creature. Absolutely. Temple Garden off the top, sweet. So we don't even need to think about anything. We can just jam our flying, jam our Daybreak Coronet, attack our opponent. If our opponent wants to block, they have to throw away their Zabaz, their best creature. Still, our opponent has not got access to any green mana as well, so they can't play Hardened Scales to make anything funky. We're up to 21, opponent down to 10. Alright, so off the Urza Saga trigger, our opponent has got Springleaf Drum, 5 cards in hand, an extra mana floating. Oh, pardon me, Zabaz only has flying if our opponent pays mana to give it flying. It's sort of important. Our opponent has played out Hardened Scales now. See Arcbound Ravager. Sure. Alright, so Zabaz has been sacrificed to the Arcbound Ravager, putting a modular trigger here. That's going to go up twice. Our opponent gets an Ozolith trigger as well. If Arcbound Ravager sacks itself, that's going to move 5 counters across. And then, is it just 1 onto the Ozolith? That's manageable. Pardon me, our opponent can do up to 7 Arcbound Ravager triggers, I believe. Or do they need 2 Arcbound Ravagers to do it that way? Opponent goes to combat, attacks for 9, so we can just ignore this attack. Our opponent doesn't have trample or anything, and I don't believe they can get it. So with our Vigilance, with our Totem Armor, we're in a pretty safe spot. We find Spider Umbra off the top. So we'll of course Light Pause first, and then we'll Spider Umbra afterwards. And with Spider Umbra, we can get our Rancor. And then we can deal damage to our opponent lethally next turn no matter what. Alright, so that's an attack for 8. We'll go back up to 20 again. We've got our Light Pause ready and raring to block. Alright, opponent, Inkmoth Nexus, Ancient Stirring. So opponent does now have a flying blocker in form of Inkmoth Nexus. We will need to put the trample across here if they have mana up. And Ancient Stirrings finds Hangerback Walker. It's not too bad. Alright, opponent is casting Hangerback Walker for 1. So we'll enter as a 2-2. Sacking, Patchwork, Automotion to the Ravager. I guess our opponent's plan is to make a giant hangerback walker here. Yep. Okay. We can just attack wide and kill our opponent, though. I guess they can get a bunch of flyers and delay the game an extra turn. What do we find on top? Not helpful. Alright, let's go ahead and attack. We don't have a choice here. And then post-combat, we can play Light Paws. We can recast our Rancor onto our Bogle for a lethal attack next turn. There's the sack. There's this fella. And our opponent can actually make a giant blocker by sacrificing the other blockers. It's pretty interesting. Yeah, they're going to look to kill the Light Paws. I don't know why they're putting 3 there, 4 there. That doesn't make any sense. They only need to put 2 here. I guess it's to preserve life total, so they needed to put at least 3 there. They've wasted 1 Thopter token, though, in my opinion. Sacking that one, denying the life gain. Yep, that's very smart. This trades with all of them. Sure. Alright, so post-combat, Rancor, Light Paws trigger. Yes, this time we'll treat ourselves to an Audacity, so if this leaves the battlefield for some reason, we get an extra card draw. There was no way to give Light Paws flying because we already have Griffspoon on the board. I think our opponent has it here, us here, if they sequence this right. The Ozolith goes on 1. We'll block the Uckbound Ravager. Oh, now we're super dead. And then they just move the tokens across to a safe flyer. Yeah, Inkmoth Nexus is killer, man. So we're forced into blocking Inkmoth Nexus, or we die to poison. Alright, so no real decisions to be made. Chuck this here. We'll get recasts of Sentinel's Eyes and Rancor. Escaping and casting from hand, so we can make Light Paws reasonably big and trade off with a large portion of our opponent's board. We need to kill them next turn, though, because Inkmoth Nexus will keep these counters. We gain some life. That's something as well. Interestingly enough, Spirit Mantle, the card we removed from the deck, would be perfect as a top deck. I'm going to be very sad if I see All That Glitters. Griffspoon is pretty reasonable. So now we can just cast 3 cards in total. Escape. So go for maximum damage here. We'll get another copy of Rancor. We'll then Rancor getting Ethereal Armor. And now we Griffspoon for Hyena Umbra. And at this point, it's an attack for 18. Our opponent has 8 creatures here that they can block our creature out and trigger our totem armor. And then we're just dealing with Inkmoth Nexus that gets buffed by Ozolith, most likely. Oh, never mind. This thing's absolutely enormous. Alright, so our opponent takes out game 1 in a pretty impressive fashion. Unfortunately, we did not hit removal like a Beseiju. Yeah, so 20 here, another 18 on the Ozolith for when they attack. Alright, GG's opponent. Alright, so here we can see a Harden Scales deck. Unfortunately, just a bit slow to take that one out in the main deck. We can see copies of Beseiju and Force of Vigor in lesser volumes. We can see Chalice of the Void, Nature's Claim. Also, Haywire Might is really, really good against us. Yeah, on to sideboarding. Alright, so we should note as well, our opponent's deck also plays Agatha's Cauldron, which is very, very good against us. Alright, so this is actually going to go pretty nicely. Our opponent could board in Dismember, expecting the Oof, but it's possible that they don't even expect it at all. We've got removal in form of Solitude and Force of Vigor. Obviously, the Beseiju is in the main deck as well. We do have the option to just race our opponent with Light Paws, especially when we're on the play. So I think that's actually a very viable strategy. And if we minus 1 Light Paws and 4 All That Glitters, we can just do that without sacrificing much at all. So let's do this. Let's jump into the match. Alright, good hand. Alright, cool. Great, we'll keep this. No double white. We do have a Force Pitch spell to Force of Vigor while still having Rancor and Ethereal Armor on turn 2. Alright, so our opponent did mulligan to 6, and they get to start the game with Gemstone Caverns in play, pitching the Inkmoth Nexus, so potentially going to be quick here. Alright, we see Ancient Stirrings, and that finds Grover the Burn Willow, okay, into a second Ancient Stirrings. Alright, second Ancient Stirrings finds Urza Saga. They're going to be a little bit happier with that one, I imagine. So starting out, we can just be as aggressive as possible. And we found an aura off the top as well, which is nice for us. Alright, and our opponent does play out Agatha's Cauldron as well. That's definitely going to be something that we'll take care of with this force. Unfortunately, we've drawn like only white auras. It's pretty irritating. So I'm going to go ahead and Griffspoon here, attack for 7. And then we have to decide how good this card is. It's pretty good. Oh, our opponent just concedes to their draw step. Okay, excellent. Our opponent keeps their 7, and unfortunately we have this no lander that we have to throw away. We'll keep this one, however, throw a Bogle. And yeah, let's hope we hit that second land drop and really shut our opponent down. Spider Umbra off the top. And opponent is Saga into Hangerback Walker. Land? Not land. That's a bit lame. Okay. Still, we got a bit of fodder for Force of Vigor, should we ever find it. Alright, Arcbound Ravager. And no attacks from our opponent. Hyena Umbra off the top. Not really what we want. I'm really hanging out for mana here. Now our opponent can potentially get an Inkmoth kill on us this turn. Yeah, Collector Roof was really quite necessary. See what happens. Ah, damn. I've been slow clicking through my opponent's turn, so hopefully that they don't go all in on the Inkmoth Nexus and respect the Force of Vigor. It looks like they're just going to go for it, though. Alright, so yeah, they've gone for it, unfortunately. We will block, we do have reach, we can afford to lose our creature. If we hit Force of Vigor off the top, we can potentially destroy a lot of what our opponent is doing. Kill the Inkmoth Nexus. No, I don't think it works on the Inkmoth Nexus. Because it's an artifact land, but it's not an artifact. So like specifically Solitude would be needed. Alright, we find another force. I guess we see if it works or not. It probably doesn't. Alright, opponent with a Hangerback Walker as well. We're on 14. I don't like this Ozolith. It's very frustrating. Hangerback Walker just to make this thing even bigger. Okay. Alright, so I don't think Force of Vigor is going to work here. But we do have to try. So I'm going to block the Arcbound Ravager, I suppose, and then go ahead and cast this Force of Vigor. Inkmoth Nexus, Arcbound Ravager, and it looks like it's actually working. Our opponent can just jump stuff across onto these flying creatures though, so we're still in a really bad spot and probably need to spike Solitude to remove the fat flying creature. Okay, yeah, like this Ozolith is just insanely big now. And this is a like non-activated ability. Our opponent did jump it across there and Thopter wins it for them. And would you know it, land on top, several turns too late. It's a shame we couldn't deploy Oof. Alright, welcome back to the third match now. We lost the Darrell versus Happy BG, and I'm going to go ahead and keep this hand. It's a little bit average, but we'll see what comes of it. What plays Noble Hierarch these days? I'm extremely confused right now. Oh, we're just versing Infect. Infect's really good against us, actually. Blighted Agent. Okay. So they now have their unblockable creature. They're not going to utilize Inkmoth Nexus, so there's no point holding up Beseiju. Although, I guess if we can, we will. We're going to just attack for 4, and this is likely die, you know. Opponent Royal Treatmented in end step on the Blighted Agent. Obviously not expecting interaction from us, and they'd be right on that one. Alright, so opponent Distortion Strike on their Blighted Agent. Second Noble Hierarch. So we're going to see a couple of triggers here for the Exalted. So that's currently 5. Yeah, we could well be dead tier to like an effect, right? Maybe not. Maybe it's a kill over 2 turns. Alright, 5 poison. We need to somehow deal all that damage to our opponent. Actually, it's an enchantment token. We could potentially kill our opponent's enchantment token with our Beseiju if they don't have any other way to add extra Infect. Attack for 9. And then how do we win it? Ethereal Armor. Attack for 5, putting them to 9. Ethereal Armor would add 4. So Ethereal Armor, all the glitters, would potentially win it for us. Note our opponent did not block our Slippery Bogle, which otherwise would have died to this Infect effect. Interesting. Alright. No blockers. Beseiju on the Royal token. Do you have another pump effect? Opponent does have the mutagenic growth, so we do lose this one. Wow, this is how Infect is looking at the moment. They've got Spellskite. We're fucking doomed here, man. This is horrible. Oh my goodness. Obviously, they pump up a big guy and, you know, attack into lethal. It looks like they're running Venerated Rot Priest these days. Preordain as well, a pretty big upgrade to previously Sleight of Hand. Alright, so we have to be as fast as possible here. Solitude and Force of Vigor are fairly obvious, considering Force of Vigor also deals with our opponent's Inkmoth Nexuses. Collector Roof's a bit more of a gamble, but from what I'm seeing here, it says 2.3 spell skites and 80% of decks on MTG Goldfish, so I think it's worthwhile boarding in. We're just going to board out... Actually, we probably shouldn't board out Light Paws on the play. Alright, we're going to board out All That Glitters and Daybreak Coronet. Light Paws potentially can just kill our opponent on turn 3. Alright, classic no land hand. We'll mulligan this one, and this hand is awful. Opponent mulliganed to 2/6 as well. Alright, this one does have interaction. It's a little bit light. We'll have to bottom 2 cards, unfortunately. Opponent keeps their 6-card hand. There's a potential argument just to go in on Collector Roof and hope our opponent's heavy on Spellskite, because otherwise we're looking pretty weak against these force effects. I guess if we ditch Force of Vigor, ditch Glade Cover Scout, we've got 1 interactive spell and Collector Roof that can counter the hate. Alright, we have to hit land here, or else it's just doomed though. Alright, turn 1 Glistener Elf for our opponent. We find Temple Garden. Let's go. Alright, pass turn. Does our opponent go all in on their creature? If so, we will Solitude. Alright, opponent Verdant Catacombs into Forest. We see Noble Hierarch, that's fine. Attacks with Glistener Elf, Exalted Trigger. Alright, I see no reason to block our opponent's creature currently, so I won't block our opponent's creature. Alright, and we find Ethereal Armor. That's really good, because now our opponent can't just pump Noble Hierarch and block our oof. Alright, we'll get in for a couple of points of damage now. I guess we did have the option to hold up blocks. Any aura off the top and we can kill our opponent though, so this is fine. Alternatively, if we hold the Solitude, we can Daybreak and kill our opponent next turn, or represent lethal. Inkmoth. Rot Priest, sure. Alright, opponent attacking, Exalted Trigger. Okay, any pump effects opponent? No. Sure. 4 Infect. Our opponent can't Rot Priest us out with that toxic effect. Alright, this is scary. Opponent Blighted Agent now. A white card off the top would be good because then we can Daybreak and hold up Solitude. 1 card left in our opponent's hand. Alright, perfect. Perfect, perfect. Opponent has to block with at least 1 creature now. We've got Hyena Umbra on whatever they try to pump to kill it. And then we'll also have a blocker as well for any of these wide scouts. Alright, opponent goes to 1 after blocking with the elf. Wow, our opponent's conceded to Collector Roof, so I guess they did not have any pump effects on board. In hand. Alright, so do we want to change anything with sideboarding here? I think we just run it back. No need to change. Probably what's our best list. Opponent Miles. We probably want to do a little bit better than this. Like, this is a good 6 or 5. But we need, like, 1 interactive element here. Or a vigilance effect or something. Alright, so we got Collector Roof. We got Light Pause. We got some auras. It's not overly pretty, but I think we keep it. Boseiju can remove an Inkmoth Nexus. And yeah, not completely blown out. Oh wait, I mulliganed. Whoops, that's a mistake. Apologies. Alright, we'll take that one back. We are completely blown out against Spellskite now. God, that's frustrating. Thicket off top. Sure. Ah, oh, god damn it. There's a Spellskite. I freaking knew it. Oh, that's so frustrating. Alright, come on, Collector Roof. Off the top. Let's go. You are not Collector Roof. Alright, we do have Force of Vigor in the deck, so there's no real reason to play out this other Bogle, I don't think. We'll use it as, like, pitch fodder to kill Spellskite. That's so frustrating. Our opponent missed a land drop as well, and absolutely would have been, like, game-winning having both Light Pause and Collector Roof to cancel out their Spellskite. Alright, now we see Blighted Agent. Looks like our opponent may have missed another land drop. That's something at least. Daybreak Coroner off top. Frustrating. Alright, opponent has now made their land drop and has gas. Venerated Rot Priest, sure. Another Noble Hierarch as well. There's Might of Old Crozer. Toxic Trigger. Now we need to both find removal for Blighted Agent, have our opponent not have any pump effects for Venerated Rot Priest, and find a way to deal with Spellskite. I don't think we can do this. There's the mutagenic growth. It is an absolute shame that we did not keep that 6. Oh my god. That's so frustrating. Alright, so here we are for match number 4, and we'll go ahead and keep this hand on the die roll versus Monsoon Blue. Maybe that's Monsoon Blue, pardon me. And, alright, so turn 1, we'll Horizon Canopy our creature in, and go from there. Our opponent did mulligan to 5, by the way. See an Urza's Saga. See an Amulet, our opponent is on Amulet Titan. It's a shame we don't have another land drop to just kill Amulet. I think we play the Boseiju, play the Light Pause, and try to kill our opponent with Light Pause next turn. Actually, we're going to be a little bit of damage short there. I guess we can All That Glitters, get Daybreak Coronet. That's pretty strong. Oh my goodness. So opponent's got double Amulet. Let the wackiness begin. Alright, opponent has green. Is this Dryad of Lycian Grove? It sure is. 2 cards in hand. Any bounce lands? I guess I'd lead on bounce land over Crumbling Vestige. If that's what they had. Find Hyena Umbra off the top, no 3rd land. So is this a fact of like a case of all roads lead to Rome and we're good? Or do I have to be a little bit careful about how we do things here? I think we want to make our light pause as large as possible to play around it dying. Dying to blocks, dying to Valcourt triggers. So I think we just do it this way. Alright, we'll go ahead and attack for 13. We have our opponent dead next turn, should we get that far. That's versus like all that glitters plus Daybreak Coronet would add 5, so we would have had only an attack for 7 and a very vulnerable creature. I probably should have got got Totem Armor off Hyena Umbra for Engineered Explosives, so I think that was a miss sequence. So the opponent, Summoner's Pact. With that they find Prime Time. Simic Growth Chamber now. Yeah, that's pretty good. So third Amulet. Note that. Off of the Urza's Saga. This is wacky. Alright, so here we are several minutes later. Our opponent has spewed out 3 Primal Meval Titans off of Transmuting Talaria West for Summoner Packs. ETB triggers. Now we can see Boros Garrison and the Slayer's Stronghold to give all these fellas Vigilance and +2. That means our opponent is going to be attacking for, what, 24, which is well and truly lethal. So it was in fact a case of all roads lead to dying a turn before you hit Rome. Alright, I'm going to concede and move on to sideboarding. Alright, so here we can see Amulet Titan, and I mean, we saw exactly what their deck did in that previous turn. Looks like they're actually sporting the One Ring these days, so that's something to keep in mind with sideboarding. As far as their sideboard is concerned, we can see Engineered Explosives here, and we see... usually we see Force of Vigor in our opponent's sideboards, but potentially not. Generous and just has Reach and Forest Cycles. Alright, so we can see 1.4 in 39% of decks, so it could be that our opponent's going to interact with us less than what we thought. And beside you, there's approximately 3 copies across the main deck and the sideboard. Opponent does have access to Engineered Explosives as well. Alright, so cards we definitely want in this matchup include Force of Vigor and Solitude. Collector could be a little bit of an overboard here. It's good against the One Ring and Engineered Explosives. I feel like we just want to, being on the play, look to combo our opponent with turn 3 Light Pulse kill. And that involves like just cutting our 2-drop auras mostly. So go ahead and do that. Daybreak Coronet can be a little bit weak into interaction as well. Here we see 2 interactive elements with our opponent's deck, or 3 I guess actually. I think we are supposed to keep this, but we need to actually top deck reasonably well with a hand like this. Like we need to make second land drop on curve and then hopefully hit a run of auras after that. This definitely could go bad. So I want a Boreal Grazer for our opponent. Our opponent did keep 7 cards as well, so that's important information. We find Daybreak Coronet off the top. Regardless of if we play out the Beseiju or not, we can't play 2 auras this turn, unfortunately. So we're going to take a turn off here. Hold up interaction. I think we hold Beseiju in hand to remove an extra artifact or enchantment. And our opponent's just holding up interaction with us. That's pretty spicy, isn't it? Collector Roof off the top for us. Next turn, opponent will be at 4 mana. I guess we just attack. We're still not drawing a white land source. I don't hate Collector Roof. Is Collector Roof worth playing? I think Collector Roof is worth playing. So we'll drop our Beseiju. And unfortunately that takes us down to 1 interactive element with Force of Vigor. We don't have any extra green cards to pitch, but I think this is correct in face of them potentially playing One Ring and using that as an engine and also protecting our board against potential Engineered Explosives. I feel like we're going to get blown out by a Force of Vigor or a Nature's Claim from our opponent. Sure. No, it has to be ethereal armor or we still can't attack. Alright, let's go ahead and attack with this guy, see what happens. At least we can Hyena Umbra and then land Daybreak on Collector Roof if this goes pear-shape. Opponent Infect takes the damage, no blockers. Alright, now we're talking. Now we see Urza's Saga, so we're going to look for a good time to Force of Vigor all our opponent's stuff. So Summoner's Pact. Sure. Opponent finds Primeval Titan. Alright, so they're casting Primeval Titan here now. I think that's fine. I think we force remove these in response to all the triggers going on the stack. Okay, and we see Valakut triggers. Sure. Alright, so we're just absolutely doing this. So remove Saga, remove Dryad. Pitching Force. Our opponent no longer has all these mountains, so these abilities just fizzle. And we'll have to see if they can play out another copy of this. We do want to see white mana this turn. Come on, deck. It's a massive letdown. Alright, well, hopefully our opponent doesn't have access to another copy of Dryad of Lycian Grove, or else we're just dead. Opponent does block with the Arboreal Grazer. Oh, that's right. Our opponent has to pay for Summoner's Pact, so that potentially makes it more difficult for them to play out anything? Question mark. Aha, Microsynth Gardens. No Amulet to copy this time. The One Ring can't be activated, but they do gain protection from us. Alright, so we see Talaria West, Simic Growth Chamber, bouncing the Talaria West. Our opponent currently doesn't have access to double blue. Interesting. Hey, that's only a turn late. We'll definitely oblige and throw lifelink on our creature though. We'll attack even though they've got protection. It doesn't really do anything. Yeah. We're not supposed to gain life there, but you never know what happens with this crazy client. Alright, our opponent can now transmute a Talaria West, meaning we are dead to Valakut triggers off of Summoner's Pact plus the Dryad of Lycian Grove. Alright, there's Dryad of Lycian Grove. We're just dead to attack plus triggers, so we'll concede there. It's a really big shame that we blanked on white mana as long as we did there. If we got the Daybreak Coroner out a turn earlier, we would have potentially gained a little bit of life, even if it was only like 7 or 8 life. We would have been also able to block the Primeval Titan if it attacked in that later turn. So, oh well, on to the final match. Okay, and here we are for match number 5, fifth and final match. We won the die roll. Turn looks decent enough to keep. Definitely an option to go all in on the light pause as well. Alright, so opponent with Blackcleave Cliffs in untapped. What is this, like, just scam? I'm not sure what's going on here. I think, assuming we are versing scam, we'll just go ahead, throw down, hit in. I think maybe this is a missequence of land as well. I should probably Windswept Teeth into Plains to play around potential like Ritual into Blood Moon or something. Opponent holding up Lightning Bolts, so Light Pause lives. I feel like instead of jamming the Light Pause, double aura attacks a little bit better. Firstly, it puts pressure on our opponent. Secondly, if our opponent like double griefs or something, like Grief Bring Back, a little less weak. So opponent with Profound Tutor. Is this like a mono black variant or something? Not really sure. Sure, Sentinel's Eyes. Sounds great. Go ahead, attack for 8. Put our opponent down to 7. Well, our opponent concedes the match, and we know they're playing Profane Tutor. Alright, so it looks like our opponent is playing a Goyo's Vengeance through the Breach deck, utilizing a Profane Tutor as well. You can see quite a bit going on here. We've got a couple of big creatures. We can see Thoughtseize interaction, Lightning Bolt interaction, sideboard, Engineered Explosives, and Blood Moon as well. Alright, so quite a bit's going on here. We want our graveyard hate, we want protection from discards. We've got Leyline of Sanctity, and then we've got things like Sanctifier and Endurance to interact with the graveyard. We'll just take out Light Pores and All That Glitters because they're A bit slow and B, vulnerable to removal. Sanctifier is definitely an efficiency swap there. Alright, this hand has got Leyline of Sanctity. I think we keep this. We do need to hit that land drop or else it's going to be way too slow. Reasonable-ish clock here with Umbras. And our opponent has mulligan to 6. Another Daybreak off the top. Man, we normally only see one of these if we're lucky, and at the moment it's a bit unfortunate because it's hard to deploy these out in an efficient manner. Boseiju, I guess we're playing this one. It'd be so bad if our opponent has Blood Moon though. Alright, so we are attacking with our Bogle. Alright, opponent is Thoughtseizing themselves. We can see Yargle to the graveyard. And then we can see their hand, which is Explosives, Lightning Bolt, Thoughtseize. Yep. Explosives on 1 is pretty reasonable. We do have Totem Armor, so our creature will come back from the graveyard. If we Sentinel's Eyes down, we can deal an extra damage. It's not super amazing though. I guess we'll do it. We do get Totem Armor. We get Rancor back to hand. Opponent's going to have Bowmasters entering as well. Another mountain. The Bowmasters could make things difficult. We're supposed to just not attack. Alright, well this is kind of funky. Let's go ahead and double Horizon Canopy. We'll not attack because... Oh wait, no, our opponent can't activate Explosives and cast Bowmasters in the same turn. Alright, I've just slightly missequenced that and skipped... We could have recast Rancor with the way our opponent allowed us to time that. Against an opponent that's playing well, we wouldn't be given that option. Against this opponent, we did have that option. Alright, so now we're playing around Bowmasters. We've got another Daybreak Coronet here. Boseiju is a dead land because they're legendary and we can't have 2 on the board at the same time. Alright, our opponent's on 1. Here's Bowmasters. We know 2 cards in hand are dead here against Leyline of Sanctity. An opponent needs to find interaction for our Bogle, and they do not. They concede, and we get a 2-3 finish. Alright, so that leg was sort of interesting. We didn't finish positive, but we versed a couple of tough matchups. Like, Amulet's very difficult to win these days, and Infect is near impossible to win. Unfortunately, against Infect, we probably could have, like, won, and then we mulligan that 6-card hand with a misclick. Collector Roof, who knew what could have been? As far as things are concerned, the mission statement of the league being playing All That Glitters. I mean, honestly, there were very few games where we actually played this on curve on turn 3 and attacked for, 12 points of damage or something of that effect. Yeah, overall, we just did normal, good Bogle stuff with Ethereal Armor, Rancor, and a guy. Yeah. Sideboard-wise, I feel like we liked the Sanctifiers. I mean, they came in handy there. In general, the Graveyard Hate, I think, is reasonable to have at the moment. I would like to somehow find room for an extra Solitude. I can't see us doing that unless we cut copies of, like, Collector Roof, Gadok Tig, or Leyline of Sanctity, and I think we kind of want all these cards. Like, if we come up against Tron in the league, we want both of these guys. Solitude is, pretty important. Maybe we could go, like, 1 less Endurance and a 2nd copy of Solitude, but I don't think I want to mess around with any of the other numbers. Endurance being specifically good against Living End, right? Alright, so overall, I think the deck's in a reasonable place at the moment, but you do have to play well when you're piloting it. Obviously dodging some tough matchups like Amulet could be helpful as well. Thank you all very much for watching the video. I do hope you enjoyed it. If you did, be sure to let me know down below in the comment section. Throw us a like if you enjoyed it as well. And until next time, have a wonderful day. I'll see you then.